afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn session on expanding your mentoring program with corporations, businesses, government departments, unions, faith organizations, service clubs, municipalities, and many, many more. I'm Michael Jans. I'm the Partnership Engagement Manager with the Alberta Mentoring Partnership.
And I'm Corey Dodge, the Technical Administrator with the Alberta Mentoring Partnership.
Yeah, so we hope you've got your sandwich, got your cup of soup, got your coffee ready. We're going to have a bit of a journey here today with a couple of our friends in the mentoring movement who are doing great things in our community, and we're going to be sharing a little bit from them, and then we're going to be hearing a little bit from you. So welcome to the webinar. We encourage you to visit www.albertamentors.ca to learn more about the Alberta Mentoring Partnership. Corey, we're excited to roll out the Corporate Mentoring Program Toolkit. Do you want to walk us through that?
Sure, yeah. So if you want to, so this toolkit was just launched about a week ago. You can find it directly on our website at albertamentors.ca/corporate-mentoring, which is where we are now. And so on the page itself, we have the two toolkits that we have. We have the Corporate Mentoring Program Toolkit for businesses, and then the Corporate Mentoring Program Toolkit for organizations. And so you can, these are PDFs, so if you click either of these, it'll download the toolkit, and then in those toolkits are included tools, which you can also download directly from this site on the Corporate Mentoring Toolkit website as well. So there's a Become a Mentor presentation, there's template posters, there are brochures such as your Mentoring 101, the top 10 reasons not to mentor, and then also a mentoring program champion position description that can be used.
It's a spoiler, the 10 reasons not to mentor, we defeat every one of them. So if you have somebody who says, oh, I can't mentor, I don't have time, we've got reasons why they still need to mentor. And actually, if I can show you this toolkit video very quickly at the bottom, Corey and I had a little fun with this. We created a video where we walked through the toolkit in a lot of detail, and we help a mentoring organization, Corey's kids, help connect with a business, Michael's Motorcycles, and help them get mentoring supports from the organization. So we encourage you, as you're following along at home and enjoying your lunch, take a look at albertamentors.ca/corporate-mentoring and play along. And if ever you're looking for resources on our Alberta Mentors website, you can mouse over to that little orange magnifying glass in the corner, and we have a really robust search function that pops up, and yeah, and it's great. So again, welcome to our guests. We have Brianna Berthiaume, who's the team lead and Youth in Care program coordinator from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Red Deer. We have Jonathan Murphy, who's the manager of commercial banking at the Canadian Western Bank. And we have Laurie Witaker, the director of local initiatives from CrossRoads Church in Red Deer. So when we're talking about corporate mentoring, as I said, we do talk about businesses, but really we're talking about a whole bunch of other external partners. So it's framed as businesses, but really it could be service organizations, it could be governments, your municipality, your city hall, any external organization. All of the theory here outlined in our toolkit is very transferable and it's very helpful. So we hope that you'll take a look at it. Before we get any further, I want to give one more plug for the National Mentoring Symposium. It's coming up November 2nd in Banff. We have a fantastic conference. We've got great keynote speakers. We've got mentoring leaders from across Canada coming to share best practices. I personally really appreciate the focus this year on Aboriginal mentoring. There's some speakers and programs that are going to be outlining how we can really reach out to our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit neighbors here in Alberta. So we're hoping that you take a look at that. It's a very affordable conference. It's a great time, and if you're coming, we really want you to come over and say hello to us. So just visit nmsevent.ca or nmsevent.com. We'll get you registered. We'll get you there. See you there in a few weeks. Finally, this webinar, as with most of our resources, we like to try and tape them. We like to try and make them available to our members in perpetuity. We know many of you have full caseloads. You're working very hard out on the front lines mentoring, so we want to make them available for you when you can watch them at your convenience. So this webinar will be taped, and the benefit of tuning in live to the webinars, though, is you can ask questions. So it can be a lot more interactive. Corey, how can a viewer at home be interactive with us on the webinar?
So if you're logged into the webinar right now, you will see a right-hand control panel. And so in that control panel, there's a type message here box. And so if you have a question at any point during this webinar, just type your question there, and we'll get to it probably near the end, but in good time.
So let's do a test question. are you going to the National Mentoring Symposium? So at this time on your computer, please type in and log into the chat, or you don't even have to log in. You just type into the chat box if you are going. Excellent. Yeah, some responses are coming in. So that's exactly how you can ask questions. You can type in your questions today during the webinar, and we'll respond to them as at the end of the presentation. So excellent. Well, thank you very much for listening, and let's get started on the webinar. So first of all, welcome, Brianna.
Hi, Michael.
Yeah, so just to begin, who are you, what do you do, and why are you so passionate about mentoring?
Okay, so yeah, I'm the team leader with Big Brothers Big Sisters in Red Deer. I'm also the Youth and Care Mentoring Coordinator, and I'm a mentor myself. So I became passionate about mentoring kind of through that knowledge of the prevention side. So mentoring enhances those healthy relationships with youth and helps them work on skills for life and becoming a part of the community. So that's how I become passionate, and I've been with the agency for 4 years now.
So from your perspective, when we're talking about partnerships, and you're a mentoring agency, what makes for a successful partnership?
So there's a lot of components to that. I guess it depends on the agency we're working with. So looking at CrossRoads Church versus Canadian Western Bank, those fundamentals will look a lot different. But definitely having that champion and that ambassador within those organizations, if we don't have them to connect with, to problem solve with, to talk to and help them spread the word for us, we wouldn't be able to have these relationships. So I guess that goes with longevity and communication. Canadian Western Bank has been a part of working with our agency for probably about 10 years now, and only the last few years have they taken another step forward and started mentoring with us, and it was just having that relationship that got us to this point. And then working with CrossRoads Church, they're very flexible. So they looked at what our needs are and what the people in their congregation are interested in, and then they make sure that we were able to align that way. So there's a lot of key components to it.
Yeah. So when you think back to the beginning, what do you wish you knew as an agency before starting a partnership?
I think the biggest thing is knowing who the players are. So I believe that we tried to connect with CrossRoads Church a couple times before we actually were able to connect with Laurie, who was the right person in the church to speak on our behalf and work with us to get our word out there and to make sure people are aware of what we're doing here in the community. So it's just being at the right place in the right time. We also have tried with other organizations where they're very interested and very passionate, but we tried, and then we had to take a step back, wait another year, and then do another ask and take another step forward, and then they worked out in the end. So just sometimes it's not the right place, the right time. I know talking with John here today, they're very busy at Canadian Western Bank, and so, things like that where, it's okay to take a step back and wait a few extra weeks or months to work with that champion.
That's a good point. You have to move at the speed of your partner, and you have to be persistent. But you spoke about how Laurie was a champion, and how do you identify a champion within the partnership that can really advance mentoring within the organization?
Both were done a little differently. So with Canadian Western Bank, we spoke with the manager of the bank, kind of asked all the questions. So is this partnership of mentoring possible? How would it work? Are the staff going to be able to be paid for that 1 hour of leave? Who can be paid? So they have some frontline staff that couldn't be a part of the mentorship opportunity just due to their roles in the organization. And how many are they willing to offer? So he said probably up to 5 staff, which they're a smaller bank, which was awesome, that he would allow to go for that 1 hour a week and do the mentoring opportunity. And then it was that, his name is Don, to Don, can he be the champion, or should it be somebody else? And he said, yeah, he had somebody else in mind that he thinks might be able to step up and take that role and would have the passion and drive to help promote it within the bank. And so that's where we got the ask, and John was very willing to come on board, and he's been the champion from the start for us there. And then with Laurie, there was, I believe, CrossRoads Church did a needs assessment and looked at what they felt was value in our community, and so they wanted to put focus on vulnerable youth and single-family households. And so they looked at Big Brothers Big Sisters information and Boys and Girls Club information, and our mission and vision statements aligned. And so Laurie is able to, as she's the director of local initiatives, to be that person that we connect with, if we want information to go into their newsletters, or would like to find out how we can offer recognition or use some of their facilities for our mentoring programs, things like that. Laurie is always that person we can go to problem solve or find the direction that we need to go if she's not the right person to connect with on that.
So what are some of the other partnerships you're exploring? You mentioned you have, it seems like quite a diversity. You have a church, you have a bank. There are others. Would you be willing to share those?
So we have been in some talks with a couple dealerships here in Red Deer. And that structure will look a lot differently as well, due to there's floor salesmen, there's commercial sales, then there's the administrative side. And so how would that work, and what are those proper questions to ask? Starbucks, there's a couple different Starbucks here in town that are very excited and want to create that relationship with us, and they want to focus more on the teens and youth that potentially could be at risk is kind of the focus that they would like to take, and that one's in talks, and we're actually going to do an activity with them next month to kind of kick it off and see where that fit would lie with them. And then UBACA, which is Urban Bulldogs Against Kids Abuse, they have approached us a couple times, but they've had some restructuring that's gone on within their group, and now it seems like it's an appropriate time to take those steps forward. We also have a lot of youth that come into our program that are very interested in skateboarding or BMXing and things like that. So we actually have started creating a connection with the adult BMX club here in town, and they are very much on board to support us, and we're looking at getting a few male mentors that way through that organization. When they have rides and stuff like that, we use them and they promote us, and kind of are having those conversations with some of the gentlemen we already know, and just branching out from there.
One comment I've heard from mentoring organizations before is they don't know where to start, that some organizations may seem too busy or too distant or too tied up in other volunteer projects or efforts. What advice, if you were speaking to one of our listeners today who's from a small or mid-sized mentoring agency, what would you tell them to get started?
So how we've done it with organizations is we just make the call, try to ask if we're speaking to a receptionist or we're speaking to the manager, if they're the right person to get in contact with and what we're looking at trying to do, and if that's even possible, or if there's a different way that they can support our agency. And then we've done meetings after that, sat down, looked at our information, our programs we have, and their structure. So there's a lot of organizations we work with the structures are so different and diverse that it can only be possible through in-school mentoring, or it can only be possible through our community-based mentoring. And so how we promote and work with those agencies are going to be more diverse. And we sit, like, most of those meetings are 1 to 3 hours long, and just sitting there brainstorming and letting them see what works for them. And I think the biggest thing is the champion. So almost everybody we've met with on the first time has not been the person we've worked with from that point on. It usually switches and goes to a different person, and they're our ambassador and our champion that we work with.
No, thank you for that. one of the things I like about the corporate mentoring toolkit is we outline some of the questions for mentoring organizations that they can use in terms of a needs assessment about how to get started and who may already be champions in your community that you can approach, and other partners that you can think about. So I encourage, if you're following along on the webinar at your office, to click through. I also was remiss in plugging, we have a podcast, and I encourage you on your smartphone or audio device, if you listen to podcasts, you can go to iTunes, the podcast app, the Stitcher app, the SoundCloud app. Go ahead and give us a subscribe, and you can follow along. We're going to be sharing all sorts of different information and how you can enhance your mentoring programs. We have some wonderful guests who have been sharing about their passion for mentoring. Another passionate person about mentoring is Jonathan Murphy, from who is the manager of commercial banking at the Canadian Western Bank. Jonathan, why are you so passionate about mentoring?
I've always kind of thought that everyone should have a role in kind of giving back. I've been involved with a service club here in Red Deer for about 10 years as well, where we kind of raise money and give back to youth-focused projects in the community. So I've kind of always been aware of Big Brothers Big Sisters. We've supported some of their causes in the past. So when Brianna approached me for this opportunity, I thought it would be a good progression, and based on the way that they've set it up with us, like being able to do the in-school mentorship for just an hour a week makes it very palatable to get involved. It's not too much of a time burden, for sure.
So how did you get connected with the Red Deer Youth and Volunteer Center?
Well, as Brianna described, Canadian Western Bank and the Big Brothers Big Sisters have had a long partnership for about 10 years with some fundraising efforts. We do a program where we give back a portion of some investments for a specific period of the year back to Big Brothers Big Sisters. So we already have the financial kind of support there already. So, that's kind of, we already had that relationship, so I was well aware of them at that point.
So it was an easy opportunity to pivot the fundraising into fundraising and to further the relationship.
Fundraising, indeed. Yeah, well said.
Yeah. If a listener is, say, in another community and they're thinking about Canadian Western Bank, do you recommend that they go to the head office in Edmonton, or do you think that they can approach a local branch and speak to the manager there?
Oh, I think a local branch would be just great.
So from the perspective, if you're a mentoring agency and you're getting ready to walk in and speak to that branch manager, and you're thinking about what's in it for the branch and what from their point of view would make for a successful partnership, what advice would you give them? How do you evaluate a partnership and deem it successful?
Yeah, that's kind of a tough question. Like I said, because we already had that relationship and it's like well publicized, well advertised, our partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, that was kind of already set prior to me getting involved, right? But I think most businesses want to see some sort of recognition. That's just plain and simple, right? Like, they want to be able to promote the fact that they're supporting charitable organizations that looks good for them. So I think if you're going to approach a business to get involved, there's got to be some sort of recognition there. It's just kind of the way it is.
And in your experience, what has been the most rewarding form of recognition? Is it thank yous in newsletters or on websites, or is it actually coming to community events like barbecues and volunteer wrap-ups? Is it a mix of all of those things? What have you found is the most rewarding?
I like spending the time with my mentee. I like the hour a week. I think the good thing for us is it's one thing to kind of have the partnership like we do with Big Brothers Big Sisters already, and it's all great. We look great to the media and the community and stuff like that, but it's like, it's a rewarding process, right? So like the next step of actually getting to kind of spend time with your mentee and kind of going down that road becomes a reward itself, right? Like, I may have strayed from your question there, but that's the basis of it for me, right?
Yeah. Within the Canadian Western Bank, how as you were championing the partnership and actually getting people to take the step, not just being donors, but actually becoming mentors. How did you find that pitch and that process went?
It's not bad. I actually, honestly, I think I met with Brianna for maybe 2 years, and I said I wanted to get involved, and it took me a little while to actually put the rest of my personal life aside and commit to doing it, right? So it's kind of like, you dip your toe in the pool, and then eventually you just kind of jump in. So I think like Brianna said, with having, a champion or identifying one person in the organization that's willing to kind of to dive in and, get involved, I think it kind of starts to spread. Honestly, it does. Another guy at the bank and I started at the same time. He's now moved to another organization, but we have a new hire, and he's very interested in getting involved. I believe he's going through the process right now. So, and like Brianna said, it's a delicate balance because not everyone at every organization has the time available or the role available where they can take the time out of their day to do that. But I think for me, just buying in to the process and getting others to buy in and seeing, like I come back to the bank, I tell them my experiences and that, the positive things and negative things out of it, and just be very transparent. I know Brianna brings in the youth every year when we go through our campaign with a mentor, and they speak about their relationship, and then the rest of the branch gets to see, okay, well, this is how that works, right? And again, like their in-school mentoring program that they do, an hour a week, it's just such a appropriate commitment, you know what I mean, for getting started into something like this. So I think they've done a good job on making it easy for us to get involved, and making that dive in a little easier.
So if you were advising a mentoring agency on the webinar today who was thinking about approaching a business or service organization or church or partner, what advice would you give to them?
Again, just echoing Brianna, I think it's, you start by making contact with the organization and hopefully get directed to someone who's willing to, be the champion per se. It's finding like the one person there that's invested in giving back, invested in building those partnerships. And I think it kind of becomes kind of more organic after that. People see what it's like, and the word of mouth kind of gets around, and I think it grows from there.
It must be hard to be the guy with the best story at the water coolers on the water cooler on Monday morning, because you had the adventures on the weekend with your mentee.
There you go. It's a tough role, but I guess I got to do it.
That's great. And so if you're a mentoring agency and you then have established a partnership and you've thought, you know what, we're going to, we found a champion, we found somebody that we're going to connect with, we want to approach the Jonathan at the Canadian Western Bank, we have in the corporate mentoring program Toolkit for Businesses, this other document here, this is the one that you would download and print out. It has template emails, it has forms, it has posters to make it as easy as possible for the person in Jonathan's position to take your mentoring program and to promote it within the organization. So it makes it, we tried to make it as easy as possible for a busy person like the Jonathan to take the mentoring recruitment, the spreading the word, the explaining about what mentoring is and how it's useful and how to get involved. We tried to make that as easy as possible. So do take a look through that Toolkit for Businesses and reflect on that. Our third guest who's passionate about mentoring today is Laurie Witaker, who's the Director of Local Initiatives from CrossRoads Church in Red Deer. Laurie, why are you passionate about mentoring?
Well, thank you for having me. I think the reason that I am passionate about it is because I've seen firsthand the difference that it does make. Before I became a mentor myself, I had done a lot of research as part of my role here and done a lot of reading, and the stories and the stats that I read really kind of blew me out of the water. And then I did become an in-school mentor myself, so I'm just entering my third year. And so I've seen firsthand and heard from teachers at the school where I go to see my little, just the difference that it does make in a child's life. so that's why I'm passionate about it.
So how did you get connected with Brianna and the Red Deer Youth and Volunteer Center?
Mm-hmm. Well, as Brianna mentioned, CrossRoads Church had taken the initiative to do a social needs assessment in our community, and through that research that we did, the course of action we were to take became very clear, that we were to be focusing on vulnerable youth and the single-parent home in our within our own church and in our community. And so then we took a look around our community to see who was already on the ground and doing good work in that area. And so the Youth and Volunteer Center was glaringly obvious, and they had a great reputation. They've been here a long time, and were already, well established in mentoring. So we were able to connect and started out with just conversations of how we could best support each other, and our relationship has just grown and developed since then.
So building on what you said about your relationship, from the perspective of CrossRoads, what makes your relationship successful? What is how does CrossRoads feel about the partnership, and why?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the key that makes it successful is that we share the vision and mission, and we share in the accomplishment of knowing that we're making a difference. So that's the big thing for us. There's sharing of resources and people and knowledge. We are able to give to them as an organization, and they in turn have really gone out of their way to support us in coming on site, doing group orientations for our people who are interested, making themselves available on Sundays to come and man a booth and talk to people who are interested in mentoring, answer questions, providing me with information for articles and the blogging that I do. So there's a real give and take, which is working really well for us, I think. And in the end, we will share in the accomplishment of matches in our community.
So how did you, within your church, champion the partnership with the Red Deer Youth and Volunteer Center?
Mm-hmm. Well, after a few conversations and, knowing definitely that this is the way we wanted to proceed, it really wasn't hard for me to get buy-in from our board, from our leadership, because we were actively looking for some way to, impact our community and get involved. So it really wasn't a difficult process. We held an information night after, the board had given me approval, and we just invited everybody who was interested to come out, and Big Brothers Big Sisters came on site and did a presentation to a significant number of people. I think there were 60 or 70 people, and just presented the need for mentors in the community, the difference that it makes, the impact that it has, and then they held a Q&A time, and were able to answer questions from the people who attended. And I think a significant number of people, signed up that night or took the package anyway. So it was a difficult thing for me to champion that. It went very smoothly.
And similarly, it must be hard to have the coolest stories on Sunday morning at the at the coffee pot before the service.
Yeah, and I've been part of my position is also to get information out to the congregation. So for me to be able to share those stories anonymously, of course, through blogging and articles and different venues that we have, it has been really cool. And then we have people within our congregation who now have stories that they give me that I can share with the rest of the people as well. So it's been great.
So if you were giving advice to a listener today who's from a mentoring agency contemplating approaching a faith organization, what would you say to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what, I would say don't be afraid to approach them. I believe that most churches are looking for ways to be involved in the community, and I would come with, well prepared with your, your current needs and numbers, and most importantly, stories on how mentoring can positively impact young people, and make yourself available on the weekends on a Sunday to be present if they, would invite you to have a table in their foyer so that people can come up and ask you questions. We're a large church, and I'm happy to say we're very proactive in our community. But I think especially for the smaller churches in smaller communities, they might not have the advantage of a large church in having specific, staff dedicated to something like this. So I would do a bit of research and see if they have a youth pastor or somebody who's designated for community outreach or giving back, those type of titles, and contact them first. And if they're really small, there might not be anybody like that, but I would be, persistent in finding the right person, and make yourself available, like I said, on the weekends if they allow you to come in and have a table so that people can approach you. And I think it's an opportunity that's probably overlooked. So I would certainly encourage you to take the steps and approach a church.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a shameless plug for our podcast, we recently spoke to Jonathan Carver from the Christian Association of Youth Mentoring, and he talked about faith-based mentoring and how we can approach, as mentoring organizations, we can build partnerships with churches and other organizations. So if you want to learn more, if you're a listener on the line, please do download that podcast episode. I found there were lots of, like Laurie has shared today, very tangible advice that you can apply. And Laurie, what difference ultimately has this partnership made within your congregation? Is CrossRoads Church a richer community for this partnership?
That was the word I was going to use, richer. We're certainly more aware of our community. We're better educated, and I think we're more connected with what's going on in our city. We're still very concerned about the root issues that make mentoring necessary. We have a large wait list here, but now we have opportunity to meet a known need, and that's very fulfilling to know that we are doing something tangible and practical that has long-term impact. So it has been a great feeling for us to be able to give back to our community, and it does not only benefit the child that you're spending time with, but I believe it benefits the mentor as well. I think it broadens your horizons. It provides you with a lot more knowledge and education about what's going on in the lives of children, and it makes us better people, richer, and not just as adults, but young adults as well, and grandparents. All around, it's a win-win, I think.
Well, thank you, Laurie. That's really well said, and I think that goes to speak to the importance that, and it goes back to even what Jonathan had said, that it's rewarding for not only the employees or the congregation, but the mentees, the mentors. It's kind of rewarding for everyone. So it's a good partnership between both parties. Did you have anything to add?
I guess I should say, it benefits us as individuals, but I think it has a huge benefit for our community as a whole, because we are inputting into the next generation, which are the people who are, growing up in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our city, and we have the opportunity to have long-term impact on how our community is going to look in the future.
And I would agree to that. And just to kind of summarize, what everyone has what we've been hearing is that it's kind of like, as Jonathan said, we're taking the plunge. It's as easy, like once you take the plunge, it's rewarding, and it can take only an hour a week, and you kind of feel the good of giving back and the partnership that you have, or the mentoring relationships that you have, and that the benefits for you as a church or the business or the Canadian Western Bank is that, as a business or as a church, you want to see recognition, but as well internally, it's rewarding for the employees, which can, could probably have a bunch of positives such as boosting morale and etc.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, if you don't have anything more to add, I think what we will do is transition into a question period for all three parties here, Brianna, Jonathan, and Laurie. So if anyone has any questions, as Michael alluded to earlier, if you type them in the chat box there, we will relay those questions to everybody, and go from there. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to input those into the chat box. As well.
Sorry, while they do that, it's Brianna here. Something else that came to mind was just the return on investment. So it's taken like a couple of years building that relationship with CrossRoads Church to get that return on investment, not only in our in-school mentoring program, but our community-based mentoring program. So just keeping that relationship, even if you're not seeing, a lot of people walk through your door to start as a mentoring organization, just keep getting the word out there and keep having that positive relationship, and time will tell, and those people that are thinking about it and interested in the programs will move forward. So.
Very true, and like everyone's been saying, it's about being persistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And if you haven't taken the plunge, just take that first step and contact or a business or an organization and find those mentoring champions, or those champions within. So here's a question for all three parties. So either one of you. So is it appropriate to ask for funding to support the program in addition to mentors? And if so, at what point? So you you try to partner with an organization or a corporation, and you ask for help, and you're asking for volunteers, and they agree to that. Is it also acceptable to ask for funding?
So if we talk about the relationship we have with both CrossRoads Church and Canadian Western Bank, our relationships involve both. So they both do fundraising efforts and or provide us money yearly for different programs within our agencies. And so we had that conversation, especially when we approached Canadian Western Bank, is would it be okay to ask them now for mentors, since they've been doing their GIC campaigns for us every year? And the conversation turned into, well, why wouldn't we ask those partners that already know the impact and have that care, and give them the opportunity to connect with us and say yes or no before we start asking more agencies that we don't already have that relationship with. So we were definitely okay with asking them, because we knew that they weren't taking it as, oh, you're going to ask us for funds and you're going to ask us for mentors. It was more of that, we value that relationship, and that is why we would like you guys to see the impact in a different way, not just through the dollars. So.
Yeah, I think it would depend on the type of organization you're trying to get involved with, and like their ability. Like obviously a bank has income, and they're typically approached for like a donation or financial support more so than they would be for bodies or volunteering. But I would think it is appropriate to ask for funding, and I would think they should maybe even do more. You know, I think that a lot of people are willing to give in various amounts, and you know, I think both are good.
And with CrossRoads Church, when we created that relationship, that was a part of the conversation, so what they could do for us on all levels. And so it was upfront and to start with about that connection and about the fundraising dollars, as well as the mentoring. So we've never, the organizations we currently work with, we've never had a concern about having the approach for both. It's just how the approach occurs. If you're talking to the right people, and if you already kind of have that relationship established, so it can't be, you know, the first time you're visiting with them that you throw all those things out there to them.
Yeah, no, well said.
I agree with, I agree with Brianna. I think it should be, you know, part of the conversation. And I would think, you know, especially if, you know, after first few visits and both parties are really clear on, you know, what is the vision here and the benefits of what mentoring can do. If the organization that the mentoring agency is approaching, if that's been made very clear and there's good understanding, I certainly think asking for financial support is acceptable. And I think the two go hand in hand. You can't just have one and not the other. For example, for our big brothers to operate, there has to be people and there has to be financial contribution. And some people are not in the situation where they're able to give an hour a week for various reasons, but they're wanting to contribute some way. And so I think it's a good opportunity for them to feel like they're involved as well.
Great, thank you. And we have a question here from Brian. He says he has a program in Central Alberta Refugee Center and a mentoring program connecting immigrants and refugees to matching business and industry and professional sectors. Just wanted the guests to know, or he just wants to know the guests' thoughts on corporate and community partners for this mentorship program, such as, I think, who could he connect with, or a type of partner.
And it was for which organization again?
He just says he has a program in Central Alberta, the Central Alberta Refugee Center, sorry.
Okay. And so who would be good partnering organizations?
Yeah.
I think you look at maybe some of the conversations and connections they already have established. I mean, we have partners with more than one bank that we're connected with, and we've had conversations with certain agencies like rental car agencies that haven't gone too far forward but are able to put the information out there and see if there's staff on site that are interested. So I think that it depends on kind of if they have somebody who has a connection and has an in. So we're really close here with a couple of the radio stations as well, and it's through an in through a person in the organization. Our fund development coordinator has had that relationship with Canadian Western Bank for many years, and he was our in to start this ask for the mentoring opportunity. So I think it's maybe having a roundtable discussion and seeing what they can brainstorm and who they know, and just even if that's not the person that is going to take them the rest of the way, just to have them open that door and say, yes, you'll want to speak to this specific person who can give you the answers you need and help that move forward.
I think too, like finding a common ground in a partnership organization is like key. So like in the sense of like the refugee effort there, maybe identify larger organizations that have a more diverse, you know, workforce, like say like a Stantec. I know that a lot of people that work there are from all over the world. So, you know, kind of know your target, what you're looking for, and kind of approach it that way.
Great. No, those are great suggestions. And thank you, Brian, for your question. If you have any, if you want any more clarification, do feel free to ask. So here's a third question. What methods would you say work best for recruiting new mentors within your organization? Like, what would you use? Things such as posters, emails. What would work best, or what does work best? So whether internally at the bank or the church or even you, Brianna, within the volunteer center?
I think Laurie should maybe start with this one. She's done some amazing work within CrossRoads Church, and she sometimes is the one emailing us and asking us specific questions to add to the information she's sharing. So if Laurie wants to answer this before I go, that would be great.
Sure. This is a challenge for me, so I'm always looking for new ways to get the message across. But we have special events every once in a while where we invite Big Brothers Big Sisters to come and use our youth wing. And so they use that evening to bring the kids who are on a wait list, as well as any matches that want to come and use the facility. And I use that evening, I promote it in advance for anybody who's thinking of mentoring or has a few more questions, just not sure what it's like. I invite them to come that evening as well. And so there's lots of kids running around, lots of fun activities going on. There's usually pizza and ice cream, and it's just a chance for people who are wondering to come and meet some of the kids, spend a bit of time with them, and see how fun and rewarding it can be. So that's been quite successful for us. And then I also use, social media. We use our website and Facebook page. I do blogging, so I'll share stories. And I think those really grab at people when it's somebody that they know who attends the same church as they do, and they hear the story of what's happening and how rewarding it's been for this person they know. That's very powerful too. And then we also have Big Brothers Big Sisters on site quite frequently, so that people can see a person and go up and actually ask questions. And we invited them to our Christmas get-together last year. We had lots of people come to that, and Big Brothers Big Sisters had opportunity to share some of the highlights of the year with our people, and then they had some activities in the gym where people could go and participate in and get to talk one-on-one to the organization. So there's lots of fun things that you can do to get the word out.
That's great, Laurie. And so I guess the answer is that there's not one answer. It's about using many different streams and mediums.
Be creative.
I think too, if I had to wade into the most important factor, is hearing it from someone else's mouth that you know. You can put up posters and social media and this and that, but it's not going to be until you hear it from someone you know and trust out of their mouth, the experience they had and the positives from that experience, that it's going to make them move forward to get involved.
And that's definitely something we've heard before, such as one of the struggles some organizations have is recruiting male mentors, and we put a question out there at one point in time saying, how do you best recruit male mentors? And the answer is always word of mouth or a friend to a friend, speaking of their experiences. All right, and so here's a question. Is there a limit on how big or how small a business should be approached, such as 10 staff or 100 staff? Is there, I suppose, is there a benefit to a smaller business or a bigger business, or is there a specific size of business you should approach? And I guess this would be more of a question for Brianna.
So the one Starbucks we're starting to connect with, that Starbucks is actually quite small. It's in one of the malls. And so with that, our relationship there is a lot of those staff are going to come through and be fully screened to be Big Brothers, Big Sisters, but they're just more going to stay with the special events side of things, so help support us. We run waitlist activities when we have bigger events. We run a really large Christmas party with our whole agency, which has a couple hundred youth attend. And so there's always room to connect with smaller organizations and bigger organizations. We also have a connection with the city of Red Deer here, and there's lots of employees there and tons of branches. And so, having that word of mouth within a few of them right now, and then eventually we'll branch out to more and more because it's so diverse, the need, and also that structural, how can we make mentoring programs work, how is it going to benefit them. So I think that a small organization is just as good as a large organization. Like I said, Canadian Western Bank, I think when we approached them, they had about 20 staff, and he was willing to provide us and let us have up to 5 mentors if they were interested. And so that's a really good statistic from that organization. So yeah, I would just see where you can go with it.
Great. Hey, no, that's great. Thank you. And if no one else, I think this probably will be the final question unless anyone else sends any more through, but how do you establish boundaries? So such as corporate logos within schools or mentoring spaces. And so when partnering, how do you establish boundaries with regards to things like that? Or such as you don't want to make a billboard out of your volunteer wall and things like that. How do you establish boundaries between a mentoring organization and, say, a corporation?
Well, we at CrossRoads have a specific area within our foyer that is specifically meant for that type of thing. So we use that. It's a screen to promote Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And as far as, I mean, for us as a church, we're not out there to have our flag waved, so there doesn't need to be any reciprocal promotion as far as that goes. But we like to be able to promote opportunities, so we do have this designated spot, and we also have printed materials on hand. I always have in my area application packages and brochures for people who are interested in that. So I would certainly, and I just want to respond to the previous question about approaching smaller agencies. They may not be able to give you 5 mentors, but they may be looking for something that they can do, and that might be just displaying your information or taking part in a fundraiser or coming to support you in a special event in a different capacity. So I wouldn't pass up the smaller agencies by any means. But if you can, have a designated area within your organization or your business, and just keep it there, keep it clean, and keep it fresh, I think. Change things up a little bit every once in a while. It keeps people's interest and it keeps them coming back to look.
Great, well said. And if no one has any further questions, I think we'll start to wrap this up. One final question from Brian again. He was just asking what the phone number for the AMP is, and if anyone does want to get in contact with us, you can go to albertamentors.ca/contact. There's a phone number as well as an email there. Yeah, thank you, Brianna and Jonathan and Laurie. This has been a very insightful conversation, and I'm sure will be very helpful for those looking for corporate partnerships or partnerships between businesses, government departments, unions, faith organizations, and service clubs. It gives a couple of examples of those. So this has been really great. Here's one final question here. Oh, Stephanie was just asking if we can provide the name of the conference again. One final plug for the National Mentoring Symposium, which it is called, and if you do want more information on that conference, it is at nmsevent.com, and then there's all the information on the registration and what is going to be happening there, and it starts on November 2nd to 4th, so hopefully that answers your question. Also, a final plug for the National Mentoring Symposium. Subscribe to our podcast, which is the Mentoring Minute, which you can search on any podcast provider as well. If you have any suggestions for a future webinar, do feel free to pass those along, and that wraps it up. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to the next webinar. Thank you, Brianna, Jonathan, and Laurie.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.